The combat in these Disney Star Wars projects has been hit or miss, mostly miss, and so I'll be analysing one sequence in particular to highlight why that is, whilst also looking at how it's meant to be done. This means we're going to have to look at the Acolyte. Yes, I know we're not done with the Acolyte just yet, it's just such a perfect show to see how not to do something. Anyway, let's get on with it. May wakes up and immediately falls over this dead guy on the floor. Now, I don't want to speak for May, but usually when people are walking around, they look where they're going, especially when the last thing you probably remember is a scary guy with a red lightsaber. But maybe she's concussed, or no, she's not concussed because that would impact her going forward. Maybe she's dazed, even though she doesn't look very dazed. If you're a screenwriter and you want to convey something to the audience, you want to do this without being too explicit. And so before we even get to the fight, we are shown that this Sith is dangerous because he's already killed a Jedi. In the short amount of time we've been away, Smilo has already been causing immense trouble. But if you want to be an even better screenwriter, then you'd realise this reveal comes with some questions. Questions that probably should be answered so that we can follow the events coherently, which is when we get the reveal that the fight has gone to the trees. But how did it get there? Why isn't it just taking place where it started? It's just shifted arbitrarily. The last we see of the Jedi, they were pushed back in a big group. Is there an easy explanation for the location change? One that we can infer from the events and have us not do the writing for the show. This one guy apparently must have recovered much faster than everybody else after being thrown around and decided to 1v1 Smilo? Despite it being stupid to do so when you've got so many allies with you. Look how that turned out for him. And from there, it forced the fight to the trees. Seems logical to me. As May learns of what's going on, she looks sad, happy, angry, distraught. Her friends are in a life or death situation and she doesn't look concerned. She looks like a Disney Star Wars fan whenever colours are on screen, not giving anything an ounce of thought and is distracted by the spectacle of it all. You know, good acting is meant to communicate what the character is thinking without spilling it out with shitty dialogue. Any guesses for Osha's thoughts at this moment? Whoa, that looked cool, didn't it? I'm not going to break down the choreography. I'm more looking at the writing choices made during and around the fight. For instance, why does Smilo use his head to block the lightsaber attacks? Which turns them off, which is new. I'd like maybe a setup for this, but okay. In the Jedi's swing, they've left themselves wide open for a move from Smilo, but instead he headbutts them. Then just as one of them's going to die, Yord comes in to save them. Seems a bit contrived to me. Yord and Smilo look at each other for a while, and in the meantime, the two Jedi with broken sabers just stand there dumbfounded. Maybe instead of, I don't know, standing still, help Yord. You still have the Force as a means of defense. You don't have to use a lightsaber. But because apparently not having a functioning saber makes them useless and depletes their brain cells, Yord gets sliced on the leg. Then just before he's going to get killed, the lightsabers turn back on. It's damn lucky they started working again just in time for a main character to survive. There's nothing in the writing to indicate why the lightsabers don't work for the time they do. It's vague enough for them to ignite just when the plot needs them to. It's not impossible, but it's still a contrivance. What the fuck was that? Are you serious? How did this Jedi let that happen? I guess Smilo's just that powerful. Now that Smilo's taken care of those amateur Jedi, he's back to trying to take care of Yord. But wouldn't you know it, Osha is here to save him by shooting Smilo with a stun gun, which does nothing.
That's not how the Force works.
Then instead of just quickly finishing Yord off, he gets distracted and decides to pursue Osha. Why not just kill Yord in the process? He can't exactly defend himself right now. Osha makes a run for it and Smilo follows. Slowly. She goes into the forest and Smilo throws his lightsaber at her. How's she gonna get out of this one? It's coming right for her. She's gonna die. Saul appears out of fucking nowhere and she's fine. How contrived can you be? This is his first appearance in the episode, meaning there is no setup or explanation as to where he was or what he was doing up to this point. He just magically teleports in to save the day. It's reasonable to assume that Osha should just be dead here. It's by far the more likely thing to occur. But when you've got writers that don't justify anything they need for the plot to happen just works out perfectly. Even Sol's character has been damaged by having him join the fight like this. What was he doing in the meantime? He wasn't helping his fellow Jedi, and he couldn't have been looking for Osha because he would have seen where she got knocked out to. He ceased to exist while he was off screen. Now that's just great writing, and just what Star Wars needs. But we don't need to justify a single thing when we're about to have a super cool fight between Smilo— Wait a fucking second! Those trees just fell the wrong way. Does gravity work in reverse on this planet? No, that can't be it, because otherwise everyone would be falling in opposite directions to how gravity actually works.
This is a film about space wizards intended for children.
And if things weren't already bad enough, Yord just materializes next to them. I thought he couldn't walk a second ago. He must have healed. I guess Smilo was just letting them stand around for a few seconds while they decide what to do with Osha. It's not like he's worried to 2v1 them, seeing as he just did a 1v4 and won that one quite easily. He must be scared to face off against Sol because he's such a good Jedi, despite not knowing anything about his fighting ability. Anyway, Yord takes orders from Sol. Osha then says they could die, therefore he's convinced to go back. What did he think was happening before Osha said this? He takes orders without thinking. That's fine for a character trait, doing the thing a superior deems to be the right choice. But it's dumb regarding his level of intelligence. His decision to follow an order is negated as soon as he hears a possible argument to the contrary. I'm not compelled by watching a dumb character, especially a Jedi. Jedi are meant to be smart, but this show is about their hubris. This example isn't though. Besides, you can show hubris without simultaneously having them be dumb. Hubris and overconfidence doesn't necessitate incompetence and stupid decisions. The plot is instead forcing them to be dumb so that the writers can facilitate particular scenes, and so that Yord can die at the proper moment later. But again, that doesn't matter because the fight's about to begin. The scene we've been waiting for. The fight scene said to be better than that of the one in The Phantom Menace. And we cut away to fucking Basil. Are you serious? Talk about hubris. When we finally cut back to Sol and Smilo, they haven't started fighting yet, and are instead just having a chat.
Who are you?
You don't remember me.
I sense something familiar.
Maybe use your mind reading abilities that this series set up the Jedi having, even though that was never how it used to work. Oh yeah, I forgot. Smilo's wearing his helmet, that blocks the ability to read minds. Fucking hell. But anyway, the duel is going to officially begin. We get in a few clashes and we cut away again. What are you doing? It's not like you're ramping up the tension or anything. Barely anything has been revealed to us in the 2 scenes where they've been interacting. In the interactions they do have, there was an opportunity to convey some character, but instead it's just a meaningless back and forth about the lightsaber colors.
You carry a Jedi weapon, but you are no Jedi.
When we finally do cut back to them again, half of the fight scuffle has happened off screen, meaning we're only getting to witness the tail end and the choice dialogue that accompanies their arbitrary breaks.
You trained May. Show your face.
Maybe beat him in combat first and then just have a look after that. Asking him to reveal his identity isn't gonna work because otherwise his choice to wear the mask would be made obsolete. You fucking idiot.
And let you read my thoughts.
That's not how the Force works.
What's with coming up with new abilities that do nothing but hinder other Star Wars media? So many problems would be solved if this supposed power was implemented elsewhere.
What master hides his face from his pupil?
Oh, the irony is palpable. Do you get it? Sol is hiding something from Osha too. Something he was completely justified in doing and so shouldn't feel guilty about at all. Even though May doesn't know why Sol is guilty at this point. And if that's true, then how can Smilo? It must be those helpful, nondescript, plot convenient and also plot inconvenient mind reading powers.
You tell me.
You really set yourself up for that one, didn't you, Sol? The writers must have thought themselves so clever coming up with this exchange. But it's so simple, though. There's no delving into this idea because otherwise it'd get in the way of this being a fight episode. But by doing that, the dialogue remains superficial. But anyway, Smilo disappears because the plot needs him elsewhere. He could have killed Sol whilst he was rolling around or struggling to get up. We know Smilo can jump around, so there's nothing stopping him from getting to Sol before he has a chance to get up. Somehow, Jeki puts up a better fight than the Jedi Masters did in a 1v4, despite being a Padawan. That's not... oh, fuck, I don't know. Just when Smilo finally gains the upper hand by destroying one of the sabers, he disappears again? He's got a phobia of killing main characters by the looks of things. Well, until the plot decides otherwise.
Coward! You are going to betray me.
What the fuck was that? Smilo goes to kill May, and oh, he missed? Or was he trying to free her? No, I was right, he was trying to kill her. Then why destroy the handcuffs? Is it so that Sol had enough time to arrive just in time to save May? That would be mighty fortunate, wouldn't it? I also wonder if May will take into account the fact that her life was just saved by this specific character, and if it will impact her going forward. Oh, no, it won't. I forgot her motivations were inconsistent. Anyway, Smilo is now in a 2v1 with Sol and Jeki. So does that mean he'll be better at defeating them now, since he seems to perform better when the odds aren't in his favour? You see, he's actually having quite a hard time because these are significant characters. Maybe it's because he's trying to kill May at the same time. But he did put himself in this situation since he missed her when she was standing still, for fuck's sake. Sol manages to get Smilo on the low ground, and Jeki decides to 1v1 him instead of just waiting for Sol's saber to turn back on. Why put yourself in unnecessary danger? Have you not seen Revenge of the Sith? At least in the last fight against Smilo, she was forced into the 1v1. But here, she has the upper hand, and in her anger, gives up that advantage. I can hear you saying, but Vita Nova, she's a Padawan, she's not as good as the others. Firstly, she's able to sustain a fight against Smilo in a 1v1 when Jedi Masters couldn't. So she is as good, if not better. And just because she's a Padawan doesn't mean she has to be dumb. It could be overconfidence or hubris. Ooh, but I'm looking for where the show depicts her character that way. And again, hubris doesn't entail stupidity. Perhaps it's in the subtext. It's not in the subtext because this show doesn't fucking know what that is. Somehow, Jeki manages to punch Smilo's helmet off instead of, oh, I don't know, maybe stabbing him with your lightsaber. He's wide open and you chose to smack him in the face. Anyway, she's dead now. What was her character?
No!
Maybe if you weren't standing completely still for the last 10 seconds, you could have prevented this, Sol. I know you don't have a functioning lightsaber right now, but that doesn't and shouldn't stop you from letting a Padawan fight a Sith by herself. As far as I'm concerned, this is character assassination. He's invested in saving lives, and yet he lets Jeki die. Oh, and also May is still loitering around, instead of running away like she's been trying to do for the last 5 minutes. And she gets captured for it. Smilo's about to then kill May, so Sol intervenes.
You attacked me while my back is turned? Not very Jedi of you.
Was that pretty good? If we're going to talk about hubris and hypocrisy, then this is a reasonable route to go down. The notion of a Jedi attacking an enemy when they're not actively trying to hurt them is something Smilo is right to question. However, this is still fraught with issues. Sol has attacked him because Smilo has taken May hostage and appears as though he might kill her. So Sol is correct to take this action. You could say it's even quite smart, which is weird. If characters are able to make smart decisions like this in the heat of battle, maybe because they're Jedi, then it shouldn't be held as a defense for whenever they make stupid decisions in similar scenarios. Characters don't have to be dumb. The hypocrisy isn't really applicable in this situation, and Smilo is stupid for bringing it up. But just when we seem to have reached a stalemate, Yord arrives, does something quite clever, and then fucking dies. What was Sol doing this time? Standing still again? That's 2 people he's let die now. What's worse is you can't even try and use the his lightsaber wasn't working excuse this time, because it's been shown to be working. Anyway, Yord's dead, and Sol and Smilo decide to engage in combat again. Only Sol hasn't grabbed his lightsaber, so this is contrived, because if he did, he'd kill Smilo immediately, and we can't have that. There's punching, kicking, headbutting, but still no lightsaber. Oh, now you grab it. Brilliant. But Osha stops him just in time and decides to indirectly try and kill him another way. Is that the Jedi way or not? But killing is frowned upon, right? She puts a light on his back and he gets carried away by big moths. Yes, you heard that right. Moths. The fucking Sith is defeated by moths. He was cutting down Jedi with ease earlier, but he can't contend against moths. It really drops the menacing factor of your villain if this is how the fight scene, greater than that of the Phantom Menace, comes to a close. Well done, Leslie Headland. Now we've seen how not to do it, let's have a look at a scene in Star Wars that's firing on all cylinders. Before the fight even begins, we are intimidated by Vader. There are no silly lines and random lightsaber ignitions on rocks that make you question what exactly the villain's plan is. His presence comes from a combination of his voice, appearance, and body language, something that Smilo is a poor imitation of at best. The sequence in Empire begins with Vader waiting for Luke in the carbonite chamber, something already set up. Vader is expecting him. Whereas in the Acolyte, everyone just happens to be in the same place despite leaving from their respective planets hours apart from each other. It's by sheer coincidence that the fight occurs at this time at this place. The event hasn't been orchestrated by the villain to carry out a certain plan. We're 30 seconds in, and the antagonist is already being presented as intelligent. Now, the choreography may be simpler, but simpler doesn't mean worse. Because as we've seen from the other example, if you can't execute a complicated scene, it just ends up coming across as incoherent. coherent. Vader's movements are calculated, and he doesn't need to move too fast to block Luke's attacks because he's in control of the fight. There's no wild swings or crazy headbutts to give him the upper hand. We can see in about 5 seconds that he's the better fighter. What's also nice is that we can see what's going on. There aren't loads of cuts or shitty CGI or random trees in the way to distract us from the fight itself. We're dealing with a film made in the 80s and another being made 40 years later for $180 million, and yet Empire has the better production value because they used to come up with creative ideas to hide a lack of budget and cheap sets. Now, it's just a case of throwing more money at the problem, which ironically makes it worse.
You have learned much, young one.
You'll find I'm full of surprises.
Vader even compliments Luke's ability, so just when he has a feeling of overconfidence, Vader immediately disarms him to remind Luke of who's in control. Vader is so in control that he's maneuvered the fight to have Luke unwittingly fall into the carbonite machine, something that took him no more than a minute to accomplish. Yes, Smiler was able to take out a handful of trained Jedi in around the same time, but his accomplishment is undermined by how stupid the Jedi are. Smiler leaves himself open for multiple attacks, and the Jedi decide to do a spin or don't take advantage of the exposed area, something that Vader never lets happen. Even with Vader in charge, Luke is still able to use his ingenuity to put up a fight. He's able to use the pipes to throw Vader off and give himself enough time to grab his saber, because Luke knows that a saber is better than using his fists. And yet, Vader is never concerned by Luke's ability, so much so that he continues to taunt him.
Release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
He's able to talk whilst engaged in combat, whereas Luke is looking incredibly sweaty and is completely silent so that he can concentrate. He even gets in a quick front flip, which is something set up earlier during his training with Yoda. He's not just magically able to do that now with no warning. Vader then pretends to be beaten in order to lure him elsewhere, unlike some characters who just randomly disappear whenever the plot needs them to. Vader's actions are driven by his motivation to get Luke to a certain place, not by some external force making characters teleport around or make dumb decisions so they don't win too easily, which is when he taunts Luke further by using only the Force to both injure and demoralize him. Vader barely has to move. He stands still whilst Luke struggles to deal with a barrage of objects. It's portraying power through intelligence, not spectacle and stupidity. He manipulates the objects to break the window to force Luke onto the platform. It's not just some silly robe throw that could have been easily avoided. I mean, look at this. A Jedi Master has just been outwitted by a fucking cloak. Vader is physically overwhelming Luke so that he doesn't stand a chance at retaliating. He uses the element of surprise to his advantage and disappears for moments at a time, not for some silly reason, but to create that sense of unease for Luke. He could be anywhere, and with how he's dominated the fight so far, the audience and Luke know that this choice is on purpose. What we need to take into account is that Vader isn't trying to kill Luke, so missing the attack on him here or in any other instance is justified by his intentions. If anything, in missing Luke and striking the walls, it only bolsters the fact that Vader is so physically imposing. Notice also, we don't need some bizarre camera angles and inadvertently funny dialogue to try and convince the audience that Vader is a force to be reckoned with. He's such a powerful force in the fight that he's gotten Luke to a dead end. The fight has gone on for no more than 10 minutes and Luke looks exhausted and beaten to shit. I guess the Acolyte characters look sweaty, but they've also been on a dense jungle planet all day, so who can say whether that's down to the fight or not? We get a really cool bit of action before Luke strikes a hit on Vader's arm. It's at this point that Vader decides to stop taking it easy, and he takes Luke's hand off 5 seconds later. He was testing Luke, but as soon as there was a sign of showing too much strength, something Vader might not have accounted for, he decides to end the fight.
There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you.
Even when facing death, Luke is unwavering in his devotion to being a hero, which is when Vader reveals the truth.
I am your father.
He announces this when Luke has got nowhere to go and must make a choice. Despite Vader winning the fight so convincingly, it didn't take a character assassination or multiple contrivances to get us here. Luke remains a hero and decides to risk death rather than join Vader or die to his or the Emperor's hand, because that's what the Jedis are. They're heroes. They might have become disillusioned or overconfident in their role as protectors of peace and justice in the galaxy, but they were still unequivocally the good guys. There was no moral ambiguity. They were still competent and not outrageously dense.
You serious?
What helps when it comes to a fight scene is that we care about the characters. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't care about Luke by the time you reach this part of the film. But who do we care about in The Acolyte? The unnamed Jedi we know nothing about? Jekki? Yord? Sol? Well, after this fight, his character is assassinated anyway. And if you do care about any of these people, then can you tell me anything meaningful or nuanced about their character beyond a simple summary? In both examples, the heroes lose, and we learn the identity of the villain. And yet, where Empires is one of the greatest twists in all of cinema, thanks to how it recontextualizes past events and affects the heroes on an emotional level, the other reveal is nothing more than a, oh yeah, I thought it'd be him, because that's all it was, a mystery. There was nothing meaningful behind the reveal, other than the shock of something new being shown to us. The reveal on its own carries the scene. As soon as any thought is put into what it means going forward, or how it recontextualizes past events, you hit a roadblock, because it means nothing. In regard to its impact on the story, it might as well have been a person we've never seen before. Disney don't know what makes a good fight sequence. It was never the spectacle, it was the emotion behind it, the reason for the audience to care. And that is why The Empire Strikes Back is remembered as one of the greatest films ever made, not only thanks to this fight scene alone, but because of its incredible focus on character, world building, and telling a simple yet compelling story. Something that can't be said for The Acolyte. I wouldn't be surprised if it's forgotten in 5 years, and those that say they enjoyed it and say it was good, never go back for a rewatch.